Hey gaming fans! So today's another, well, I guess I call it card talk. It's just where I kind of take a card and focus on it and, maybe talk about combos or some history behind it, just thoughts about it. But anyways, so this is Lightning Storm. This is a card that literally just came out in the most recent set from the time I'm recording this. Ignition Assault is the set that came out in. And yeah, like, it really is a card that can change the way people play the game. And it takes me back to those days. Now, Lightning Storm's effect is it either destroys all attack position monsters your opponent controls, or it destroys all spell and traps your opponent controls. And they balanced it out by saying you have to control no face-up cards to activate one of these effects, and you can only activate once per turn. So you can't, draw if you draw two in your opening hand, you can't play them, obviously. But really what it's doing is, prior to this card coming out, people felt really safe about setting their back row. There wasn't a whole lot of cards that could wipe that out. Now, if you go into the past, we had cards like Heavy Storm. And when I played Yu-Gi-Oh!, when I first started playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, and this card was a thing, people were always, cautious about setting your entire back row and, passing for your first turn. Because, really what would happen is if your opponent did have Heavy Storm, unless you had something to negate Heavy Storm, your game was over. And I've seen that happen so many times where, somebody would set their whole back row, and, it's even happened to me. Just because you're desperate, you didn't draw a monster or whatever, and then your opponent drops Storm on the board, and you're like, okay, I'm done. Because you have no cards, and they have a ton. So, yeah, this card kind of brings that fear back. Heavy Storm's been banned for quite a while now. I remember it was one of those cards I think that just came on and off the ban list. They had to make a few cards that were similar to it, things like Storm, which is it's kind of a watered down Heavy Storm. You have to destroy as many spell and trap cards you control as possible, then destroy as many spell and trap cards your opponent controls, up to the amount destroyed. So you have to destroy your own cards in order to get the Storm off, which means, turn one, you're not going to really do much. I mean, you're going to have to set cards just to blow them up, just to blow up your opponent's cards, and you're actually taking a negative off of this. So you really don't want to play cards like this. And of course, when Storm was gone, we did have things like, MST, Mystical Space Typhoon, where people would play this in threes, and it was just a little bit more balanced. So unless your opponent drew three of them, or whatever, and was able to take out your cards, most of the time this card was used strategically. But going back to Heavy Storm, I mean, you had plays, like there was a play called Pro Storm, at least that's what everybody always called it where I played cards, and that's where your opening turn, you draw Heavy Storm and you set it. And maybe set another back row that's chainable or something, and you summon a monster, you end your turn. Your opponent gets, the idea that you don't have Heavy Storm, because why would you set cards and then end your turn? So then they go and they set their back row, and then on your turn, you flip that up and you've pretty much fooled them. So I think they called it Pro Storm because you were trying to be a pro player by doing something like that. But that was just, just the way Heavy Storm was. The only other card that came close to Heavy Storm back in the day was, Giant Trunade, which just bounced everything back. But also, there was this card, Harpy's Feather Duster, which is completely unfair. You destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. That's it. So it's basically the one side of Heavy Storm. It's what Lightning Storm essentially is destroys all spell and traps your opponent controls. But this didn't have any cost to it. It didn't have any downsides to it. I mean, it wouldn't matter that you could, if they had once per turn on this card, because, you blow away your opponent's spells and traps, why would you want to play another one? But yeah, I mean, the fact that this is a Harpy card, this should have had some kind of limitation, like, maybe even if they ever added it to say, you have to control a Harpy monster or something. And that's the reason why this has been banned for a long time. There's even a Harpy card out now that searches this from, I think it's from the deck or something, but what's the point? It's banned, and it will probably never come back unless they errata it, which will probably never happen. The other side of this card is obviously the Raigeki side, which is almost more like a Lightning Vortex side. So Raigeki is plain and simple, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. And that's kind of like the opposite, you know, like of Feather Dusters, that instead of destroying all the spells and traps, you destroy all their monsters. And of course it leaves all your monsters intact. Now what they did with Lightning Storm is they instead said attack position. So it's kind of similar to Lightning Vortex, which is, you know, Vortex is supposed to be the replacement for Raigeki, because Raigeki got banned a long time ago. It's off the list now, but I remember it being banned for a very long time. So they came out with this, which is discard one card from your hand to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So a big difference here, though, is it's face-up, whereas this is face-up attack position. Well, it just says destroy all attack position monsters, so obviously they would be face-up. And of course, there's also Dark Hole, which is now at 3. And, you know, I don't know why this was ever banned. It was banned for a while. But, it, you know, other than going on your opening turn, it does blow up your own monsters. So you got to be careful when you want to play cards like Dark Hole, because if you set up your own board, it's almost useless. Unless you want your monsters to die. And that's where Raigeki comes in. And so now turn 1 obviously is a little bit more fearful because of this one single card that came out that essentially replaces all of these. Of course, the downside is this is a secret rare and it's really expensive. But I mean, I've been playing this game for a long time, and most of these cards get reprinted. Lightning Vortex started off as like a, I don't know if it was a super or a secret or ultra, I can't remember. It was a foil card. It was expensive at one point. Dark Hole was foil, now it's common. You know, so all these, even Harpy's Feather Duster, that came in a video game, got reprinted in, I think this is Dark Beginnings. And, you know, Heavy Storm, it's common. So, you know, at some point in time, they're going to reprint this as a common or a rare or something. They'll stick it in a structure deck. But until that happens, it's just going to be a hard card to get your hands on. Otherwise, I think, you know, in tournament plays, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Because that's turn 1, you draw this, and that's going to be the ultimate time where you get to use it. Because you won't have any cards on the field. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because it just brought back a lot of memories of, you know, Heavy Storm, and when you used to be cautious about not playing your cards and when to play your cards. And, you know, this single card has brought that back. You know, depending on if you're facing decks that even play back row. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Let me know what you think. Throw some comments down below. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.